Hey everyone, so let's take this, which is from Five Below, so let's take this and we're going to turn it into this. It says, if I can't fix it, then it's definitely broken. Hey everyone, so I thought I would start off this portion of the video like this. So this is a hydro quench, and I actually got this from the dollar store. It's a 40 ounce, and it says it's stainless steel, but I'm not too sure of that because it sounds different. If you see, that sounds kind of like stainless, but it also sounds like a plastic. Now down here sounds different, and it is plastic lined on the inside, and that may be what's causing the difference. But you can see it's plastic lined maybe. So here you might be able to see it's plastic lined a little bit. So this is what we're using to do this cup that we started today, and it looks just like that with the picture and everything. And I didn't really like that, so I taped off around the stainless steel rim right here, and I just put some tape across the top of it so that whenever I spray painted it white, this paint would not go on the inside of it. And we're gonna work on this, and we're gonna do a couple of different things. So this will be more like for my husband. I'm gonna do a wood grain attempt on the top, and then on the bottom we're actually going to go in with duct tape, and I've got a little decal that I'm going to cut out and put on it. So to start with the wood grains, I've got several different colors, and I'm going to play with them. So the first one is a Ranger ink, and it's ginger. The second one is Ranger latte. And then we have a Pixis walnut. Pinata Havana brown. And the next three colors is just one that I got from Amazon. It's US Art Supply, and this one is earth brown, orca, and sienna brown. Now these two colors, the colors are great. I've used them. The bad thing is the lids are cheap, and they split in half. So these colors actually dried out, but with them being alcohol inks, I just added some alcohol to it, and rejuvenated that. And this is my chip brush. It's a 2-inch chip brush. A lot of people, but I've heard some people say that they don't like this one particular brown because under epoxy it can leave a green hint, and I don't remember exactly which brown it is. But to me, I like that because being out in the woods and everything, I've seen different color parts of the tree, and some of the bark does have a green tint to it, so I'm not mad about that. So I'm just going to start off. This paint is just a white paint that I spray painted the green cup with. So I'm going to start out with this, and we are going to work on this and try to get a little bit of a wood grain with it. I know this color is not exactly the best looking color, but to me it looks really good as a wood grain. And this is that Orca color. Now we're going to do layers of these alcohol inks to build our look. I'm just going to get this laid down and I will come back to you. Now to get the inside of this handle, I'm just going to lay my alcohol ink down like we've done on all the other, and just give it a quick motion. And we're going to cover this entire handle the same way. Just a little bit of alcohol ink, and use our brush and swipe it back and forth. Now we're going to try to layer some depth onto this. I don't know how well it's going to work, but we'll just see how it turns out. Okay, y'all? So just go around the entire cup and get that base layer laid down. And I'll see y'all back in a minute. Now this is what the Orca is looking like. Now this will come off because you can see that's my tape. I'm just leaving it on there right now while we work with this alcohol ink. And I think that's turning out pretty good, especially for a wood grain. Next color we're going to go in with is Sienna Brown. And this is going to darken everything up. Now, instead of putting this directly on my cup here, I like to just take and put a little bit of this on my brush, and then I'm going to start working it in that way. And some people go straight up and down using the whole brush, but to me, if I lay it down on the side and just work it back and forth, you can see that we get that little bit of a dark edge. And we'll just play around with that until we get it looking the way that we like it. And like I said, we're going to add some different depths to this. You don't want to play with it all in one area and get the whole thing looking the same. So I put just a little bit on my brush. And we're going to play. So what I did was I put that initial, there we go, see? Put that initial part down and do the line, and then you can just lightly brush up, and that'll kind of level that out, and you get your upward strokes. Now I don't want to do too much of this color because we're going to use the other colors along with it, and I'm actually dabbing some of this off. And there we've got that one. I'm just taking, you can press down pretty hard and fan that brush out. And that'll get some of those lines in there for you. Now we're going to go in with our ginger. I've already pre-shook all these. And I'm going to do my ginger the same way. I'm going to put just a little bit of this color down on the tips of the bristles. And we're just going to come in and we're going to lightly brush them up. And I'm going in an arch for the wood grain, if that makes sense. That way it looks like it's got curvature in it. I don't know if you can see that or not. And just go back in with a little bit more of that color. And if all else, just lightly tap that off. And we're going to come in this other direction because you always have that little circle in the wood. So I got that on, and I'm going to lightly brush it out a little. There we go. We've got the starting of the heart of the tree. Now you can lay this directly on. I don't know if you can see that, and then just brush it out that way. But then you got that little dot right there where you put it down initially. That's one reason why I like to put it on my bristles and work it that way. Now that we've got that color on, we're going to go in and add a little bit more depth to this. And I'm putting that on all around, inside the handle and everything. And you don't have to be very precise with this. I guess that's one reason why I kind of like the wood grain. I'm going to go in with my next color, which is going to be Latte. And this is going to be a lighter color. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put a few drops on those bristles and start to work it out. Now you see this is bringing that original color back to life, and we've got our darker ringed And we're just going to work that around. So you see this is lifting some of this up and moving it to that darker ring. And here we're going to make it like a little knot in the tree. So I just put the alcohol ink down and I'm rubbing in a circular motion. And then we'll put another little drop, and then we'll work that. So now you've got that lifting again, but you've got that ring. Put another little drop. Now you can go in with a smaller brush and you can work that out just a little bit. It's harder to do with the larger brushes, but we're going to put several different rings right here, and I'll be back with you. Now here what I'm doing is I've put a drop of my alcohol ink on my smaller brush, and I'm working the center of this to get those rings. And I'm going to tilt my cup so that this area right here is going to bleed down some. And then I'm going to come back upright and allow the bottom to bleed down so that we've got more of that knot hole. Just going to work that in. I think that looks pretty good so far. Now I can take that smaller brush and just come in between these lines and kind of get that next ring to come out. Now you can use, now this is going to be, this is our darker color again. This is the Havana brown, and this is going to be pretty dark color. I'm going to put one little drop, and then we're going to work that in, and that'll be a ring. Now we have our ring like that, and you can just work it. It is easier to do with this bigger brush like that. This is what it's looking like. I'm going to go around and do a little more right in here. I'm going to do the same methods. This is going to be our walnut. And literally, it's so dark. I'm going to put one drop. I'm going to get rid of some of that. And we're going to come in. And here we go with our ring. And I actually like using this bigger brush for it. So I'm just going to put a couple of drops on here, and we're going to do the same thing. Start right here and work that ring in. I'm going to come over on this other side, and we're going to work a ring in right there. And then we're just going to work inwards to get that nice heart on that tree then, or that of the bark. So here we've got our hole started. I'm going to put one drop right there and work a little bit of that darker color. And then I'm going to flip to the other side and kind of burnish that out. That way we've got the same colors going all the way around. So once we get this done, we're going to let this sit for about 24 hours and allow this alcohol ink to cure. And we will go in with a coat of epoxy and epoxy over the entire thing. Once I get the epoxy on, I'll come back to you and we'll go with the next step. So here's what we have so far. And I went ahead and did the bottom because the next step that I'm going to do, I don't know how far I'm going to come up because we're going to lay, we're going to put our epoxy over it and seal this in, and then we're going to come back and lay duct tape, and it's going to be at different stages. So I'll be back with you just as soon as we get this epoxy put on. Y'all have a great time. So now that we have this epoxied and everything, our next step is going to be to lay our duct tape, and I just cut off a little strip. What I'm wanting to do is I'm wanting to do different layers of this duct tape. So we are just going to try to lay this down just as smoothly as possible. And get any of those air pockets out of it so that it lays down really well. And we're actually going to go around the entire tumbler with this on the lower portion. You want to make sure you get you want to pay real close attention to that seam right here, or the curve that is on this particular cup. I want to make sure that I get that down on that curve really well. That way whenever we go to do our epoxy a little later, then we don't have to worry about that seeping up underneath this duct tape. And I just want to work out as many of those crinkles out of it so it's real smooth. Now I know you're not going to be able to get every one of them, but we want to try to get as much of them as possible. Now I'll come back and I'll trim that up here in just a little bit. But first of all, let's go ahead and get the rest of the duct tape on. Now what I want to do is I want to try to get this section of duct tape just as close as I can to the first piece without doing very much overlapping. It doesn't have to go on perfect. We just want to get it on there as clean as possible. That's our main goal. And because I stretched this piece a little bit, I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make cut this. And we're going to work this on around. And I'm going to cut that because I don't want it to go up as far. And here we have our second piece. Now I can use this. Because like I said, I don't want everything to be the same height. now that we have that on, the next thing we want to do is we want to put our decal on. Now, I purchased this from off of Etsy, and I did an offset, and I added a couple of other items to it. So it says, if I can't fix it, then it's definitely broken. And this is going to be our offset to it. Now, what I want to do is I actually want to, and you can't see it, but instead of centering this like what you generally do, I actually want to offset it some. So like instead of the T being centered, it's going to be offset. And my thoughts is if the sun was over this way, it would be casting a shadow. So that is what my goal is with this. Now, another thing, here's my handle down here. And I want to put my decal on the opposite side of my handle. Now, the reason behind that, with the way that I think, is if you was to have your handle or have your decal over here and you have a right-handed person, the person that's drinking out of it is going to be seeing the decal. Now, if you're a left-handed person, yes, it would be on the outside. But then, if you have your decal on this opposite side, and here's my handle, and right there is my finger, and then of course this one up on the top. So here again, if you have a left-handed person, that person is going to be seeing the design. So that's why I like to go right here in the center, so that no matter which way you turn this cup, so if I do it right here, no matter which way I turn my cup, somebody's going to see it. So that's my whole thoughts on that. So I'm going to get my transfer tape, and I am going to get our offset put onto the transfer tape so that we can start with our designs. So if you've seen me before, I like to take a little piece of painter's tape, because I always have issues with getting my transfer tape separated from the backing. So I like to take my transfer tape and get just a little bit of that painter's tape on it, and that helps me separate my transfer tape from my backing. And so all we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to line this up the best that we can. transfer this and get it onto our cup. So I'm using my squeegee here, and I just want to press down really well on the front and the back of this. That way we have a better chance of it adhering to our transfer tape. For you that have watched me, you know I have a transfer tape that I don't particularly care for, because it is so hard to get something to come off of it. So we know that our handle is right here, and I want to get our decal just about centered. And then we're going to press it down from the center out. Now here we've got just a little bit of that decal not wanting to go down smooth. I'm just going to start to peel this up. When you get down here, we want to be real careful when we peel that part off, because we're actually going to go in there and we are going to work it down to where it is smooth. Because here again, when we go to put our epoxy on it, we don't really want any air pockets around. And this one little nut right here, take that center out. Now that we've got that on, we've got our next section here, and I'm actually going to lay each portion of this separately, because I'm not 100% positive that this is going to match up the way that I want it. Now I am going to show you that the way that I'm going to do these letters, because like I said, I do want them offset so that it looks like there's being a shadow cast. So here I am, I know you can't see me, but I'm just burnishing this first group of words down onto my transfer tape. And then as we remove it, we want to be real careful so that everything does come up with it. And here's my phrase right here. This is if I can't. So most of the time, I'm going to see if I can resituate you. Okay, so I don't know how well you can see, but instead of us going straight on centered with this, I want to do a little bit of an offset. I'm going to start with my eye right here. And the reason why I'm doing a little bit of an offset is because, and that went more centered. But the reason why I want to do a little bit of an offset is so that it actually looks like there's a shadow being cast. So I'm just going to move this over a little bit. There we go. Now hopefully you'll be able to see it. On this next piece. So I'm offsetting this just a little. And there we go. And there's that down. Now this did start to separate, so I'm going to have to do these individually. There's our and I'm going to have to lay this down with my fingers. Now we'll go on to our next set of words. And I'm just going to do this for each set of words that we have here. And I'll be back with you in just a few minutes. Now, that's all our words. So the next thing we have is this. Now, this is a foil vinyl. And I just cut each of my designs out with the foil. And then on top, to give it more of a realistic look, what I did is I duplicated each item, and then like for the hammer, I took a square and put it on top of the hammer part. That way I could slice the head of the hammer off of the handle. That way I've got the blue handle so that it looks a little more realistic, if that makes sense. So like the pliers here, those two, I made the pliers, and then I duplicated them and then took a square and covered up the nose of the pliers and sliced it, so that way I had each one of the handles. And that's what I did with all of these. So the next thing we want to do is we want to go in and layer these emblems onto here. And I made a couple of extra because I wanted to put around the base of it. And here are my shadows for those. So we're just going to go ahead and start with this one. Let's see, which one do we want to start with? Let's start with this knife. And I may have to cut another piece of transfer tape because this one is getting pretty unsticky. Then we can just see, although this isn't very sticky, all I'm doing is because it had a little bit of stick to it, was able to pull that up. So we're just going to lay this down. And here again, I still want this to be a little bit of a shadow. So there's our first part. And then we're going to go in with our handle. Now you might have a little more problem because this is a foil. So you may have a little bit more of a problem getting it to stick. So see, I didn't even hardly put any pressure at all on this. And that's the wrong one. So because I have the wrong one on there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and place this one. Now if you see this, this is where our tape's starting to pull up from that edge. You want to make sure you work that down really well. I think we're going to do this hammer. Let's see, nope. So we'll do this hammer right down in here. So that's just our shadow. Now we're going to place our hammer this a little differently. Because you see our sun's right over here, so it's casting a shadow. That one's not going to stay down, so I'll roll it off. Okay, I'm going to get the rest of these done, and I'll be back with y'all. So what this is just some polyacrylic. I bought it and had a smaller bottle, so instead of using that big can, I just put some in here. Now what I'm doing is I am putting this all over, because this will kind of, what this will do is this will help hold in these decals so that they don't bubble up as much, and so that there's no chances of the epoxy not taking onto the vinyls and stuff, because this one is kind of well, like I said, it is a foil, so I have had a tendency of that to reject the epoxy some, so putting this polyacrylic on it kind of helps eliminate some of that issue. So just make sure you have it on all over. I even, as you see, going over areas that doesn't have anything. So yeah, do this at your own discretion. I like to do this, and it will dry clear, so you'll never know that this is on there. So now that we have that on, we're just going to allow that to spin and cure. And the reason why I'm letting it spin is because we do have it a little heavy on there, and it will help float that around. And with this being polyacrylic, you can use your fingers to put it on. There's no problems with that because it is a water base. And that's the reason why I like to use this. So it is really, really humid here. It's been raining for the last 3 days. But as of right now, we are just going to let this spin and cure. And then hopefully tomorrow I can come in and put at least 2 coats of epoxy on it. And we will come back and let you see the finished product. Says if I can't fix it, then it's definitely broken.